This is Paul. Yeah, I'm just reading this dictionary. Yeah, I had noticed that they had what was called skydiving. Oh, yeah. The sport of jumping out of an airplane while it is flying in the air. Right. Quite often when you're skydiving and you go up there in an airplane, and let's say somebody decided, well, you don't need a parachute. Just jump out of the plane. I'm sure you'll be fine. Now, I would think to be able to skydive, there would be some sort of release of liability in the event that the chute didn't open. Now, if you could just find me all the skydivers throughout the whole world that are or have been through a skydiving experience, of course, where they've gone up in a plane and they've actually jumped out of the plane. How many of them didn't have any training when they decided to go skydiving? And then how many of them decided they didn't need a parachute? Now, to run a skydiving company, there is a certain amount of liability that something could go wrong. And when that person that's a customer decides to learn how to skydive and jumps out of that plane, they really don't have much recourse about changing direction. Once you're out of the plane, you're going to land on the ground. Now, when the chute doesn't open, okay, don't be surprised if they don't return for a second trip, all right? Now, when you decided that you were going to do what the law does not require, you effectively decided to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. Now, the law requires. It's kind of like this. You have a skydiving company, and the law requires that a parachute would be given to any customer of your skydiving company that is actually an approved parachute that should open when they jump out of the plane. Now, most of these types of, well, adventurous companies, they require some sort of signature from the customer that they understand the risks of skydiving. And when you jump out of the plane, it's your risk, okay, that parachute will open. Now, when the court decides to issue protection orders that do not have the form, the judge will fill in the date and time the order was granted and sign his or her name. You have to actually sign court forms. Now, I know this is difficult to believe that as an American citizen, I make sure that if I'm going to have a new experience that could risk my life, and anytime you're involving yourself in the law as a sheriff, as a police chief, or as a judge or commissioner, you would want to make sure that everything that you do is according to what the law actually says. Now, skydiving is one of these experiences where the owner of the company decided, well, I don't need you to sign this form. I don't need your consent. What I'm going to do is I'll throw a chute on your back. I'll throw you out the plane, and if you land, good for you. But if you're dead when you get to the ground, it's not my problem. Now, you have to realize that there are actual United States laws that a person can be sentenced to death for conspiring to deprive American citizens of their enjoyment of life, for using deceit and fraud to abduct, abuse, neglect, and kidnap my sons. And then there are sheriffs and police officers and those that are judges and justices that think that I would not, as an American citizen that did not consent to the issuance of a protection order because I was not given notice and opportunity to be heard. Now, The sooner America's oaths of office decide to enforce the laws of the United States, the faster the plane can land, and then you won't be at risk of your lives anymore. Okay? Now, when the law says, you're going to have to do what the law says.